this thing started. Hey team, Danny White here with the Mental Fitness Mastermind podcast presented by mentalfitness.care and the Athlete Mental Health Certification Program, where athletes help athletes defeat mental health challenges in the game of life. Okay, so let's get to it. The goal of the Mental Fitness Mastermind is to bring together a collection of current and former athletes, mental health professionals, sports psychologists, and key stakeholders within the athlete ecosystem, kind of like the guest I have on today, and come up with solutions to help us defeat mental battles that we face as athletes every day, because athletes, we face something that's a little bit different. I mean, we're different. I mean, we process information different. We look at the world different. That's why I really believe helping athletes is a big key to defeat this challenge. Okay. So just like in every team, we all have a position to play. As I always laugh and say, I was so aggressive. I wanted to play linebacker or I wanted to play nose guard, but I was too little. So I had to play the defensive back. But we all have a position to play, and then we have to play our position. And at the mastermind, our position, what we felt like we could do is aggregate, bring this great mind together, bring athletes together and share real stories. Okay, we're going to be bringing mental health professionals, sports psychologists, again, coaches, and we're going to be gleaning information from them, from their personal experience and their professional experience. And that's how we're going to run this thing. And so if you're an athlete, you certainly have a position on our team. If you're a mental health professional, if you're a sports psychologist, if you're someone that works in the athlete ecosystem in terms of a brand or a business that caters to athletes, solely caters to athletes, then we want to talk to you. You have a position on our team. Okay, so that's how it's going to roll. And our next guest, I'm going to let you meet your teammate. And here's what we're going to do. She's going to tell about herself, and we're going to put all the pertinent information down in the box below, so you'll know how to get in touch with her. All right, so her name's Kimberly Brady. I'm a big fan. I've been following her for a while, and I'm going to let you take it away, Kim.
Thrilled to actually see what you're putting together. It's awesome. It's something that people haven't had a chance to do for a long time. And being a former athlete, I was a soccer player. I played all the way through college. I had a 4-year soccer scholarship offer to play at Berkeley. And it was a phenomenal experience. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And when you ask me, you know, like, what are the experiences that athletes face? They're a little bit different than others. I think we go hard in every aspect of our life. And when that ends, you're still chasing that feeling of going hard somewhere. So you consistently pursue things and you have just this eagerness, et cetera. And I was a very typical female athlete because we didn't have opportunity to get paid any money, you know, to go into any professional sport after we were finished. And, you know, even now the players who are playing professionally as soccer players, they make very little money. And so play professionally in Japan, make no money, live there for summer and potentially try to play, or I go to school. So I went and pursued my master's program and I became a marital and family therapist. And so I was never a couch therapist. I always joke with people, I've been on both sides of the couch. I go to therapy and I was a therapist, but I was never a couch therapist. And I went hard. Like, I mean, I got my degree. I was working with severely abused and neglected children. And I got my degree at age 25, was 25 years younger than the next therapist had. My boss was like, I know she looks young. She's really an adult. I promise you, she's not 12. She looks 12, but she also comes to the table with this athletic experience that she knows how to relate to kids and she knows how to relate to things. And so I was given an opportunity at a very young age to be a therapist in this really crazy environment. And I worked with law enforcement. I worked with behavioral units. I mean, we had guns drawn us and drug houses, all kinds of crazy stuff. And I just got burned out. We can touch on this a little bit. I know you've talked with other people about that feeling of when you leave your sport and you crash. There's depression, there's anxiety, and then you're trying to fill all this stuff. And you're like, who am I now? Who am I? And so I pursued this thing. I was like, now I'm a therapist. Here's the new title, right? Well, then I leave that at age 29. And my family's like, okay, all of your education, all of your career, you're done. What are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know, just not this anymore. Just not this anymore.
And so you might be cutting out a little bit, and
Okay.
folks that are listening to the millions around the world, to the millions and millions of people listening around the world, I apologize. That's just part of the internet. It's going to happen. And so we'll cover the meat of it. We'll circle back, and we're going to be trying to listen to that. But so you thrust yourself in there. And so you had life experience. You've had firsthand execution of doing this as a mental health professional, as an athlete, and then a mental health professional. And what made you want to get into that? I mean, as an early age, I mean, that's pretty early to kind of know what you want to do, and especially be trying to deal with someone from a mentally challenged situation, where it usually takes some, definitely education, but a lot of wisdom at that point. But you're still young. Where do you think you come up with all that wisdom? Was it a mentor that you had? What was it? Life experience, or just that spirit within you just kind of guiding you in that direction?
I'm an extremely empathetic person.
Right. Okay.
So I feel what people feel. I cry at the drop of a hat. Like if I'm talking with you and you see me tear up, that's totally normal, because I'm just a feeling person. I'm Italian too, so there's part of that. But my mom was a teacher, and I didn't want to be a teacher. My dad was an aerospace engineer, and I didn't want to go in the math route.
Right.
And for me, I just, I knew what team felt like. I loved my soccer team. I came out as a lesbian at 17, and I was really supported by my teammates and my friends. My parents are a little bit different, but I was very much supported by my friends. So I was a peer counselor for people who were LGBTQ, even when I was 17, 18 years old in college.
Good for you.
And then when I was in college, I also created curriculum with other people to help kids who were in gangs in Oakland and Berkeley arena. So I was doing all that when I played soccer and was a full-time student at school. So I was busy. I didn't sleep a lot. And so for me, going to grad school and pursuing that was just natural. It felt normal to help other people. I've always been a helper. And yet at the same time, the impact of seeing young people be hurt, be abused. I mean, it's brutal, the things that we saw, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I left that at age 29. And I also didn't know how to make money. No one had taught me how to manage finances. I was single, and I didn't have a girlfriend or a partner who could help me pay for anything. And,
I'm sorry, you cut out just a little bit. I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt it. You cut out just a little bit. So could you repeat that last sentence there?
Yes, I said the bank of mom and dad were stopped years prior, right?
I wish someone would tell my family.
Yeah. Well, I'm just like,
I thought it was still open. The bank of mom and dad. I thought it was still open.
Yeah. So I was like, I need to learn how to make some money. Why don't I learn how to get involved in sales? So then what I realized was they go after us. This is like white on rice. They literally want our competitive spirit. They believe that they could drive us to gain quotas, that we can chase all this stuff. We're physically fit. People buy from people who are attractive. It's known. So corporate America goes after physically fit, attractive people, and college athletes are a big pool that they go after. And one of those companies that I started with was Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And they're one of the #1 companies that goes after collegiate athletes program, how to sell. And so that's how I got into sales. And then I left that career after a period of like 2 or 3 years. I actually sold cars for them. That was my last job. I didn't do the rental side for very long. I became one of the first females to sell cars in the state of Colorado. And so it was like, I know, it's kind of funny, like, just randomly selling cars, so I've been a bartender, I've been a server, I've sold cars, like, whatever.
Absolutely.
And so it was like this whole pursuit. It's a constant. Athletes are pursuing something, and like we're going after goals. We're driven people, and that pursuit to get better. But then the career path stopped. So with a sport, we can kind of go up in levels. Right. How good we are can lead us to different levels, but that's not always the case in a career.
No.
Because you can pursue something and you might get stuck in a glass ceiling. You might get stuck in a career path that you don't enjoy. And so what I ended up doing for about 8 years was I went from that job, and then I was working as an educational recruiter, helping students go into a trade. They were making airplanes. Okay. Hi. This whole thing about not wanting aerospace with my dad, and I'm standing inside these massive hangars with huge jet engines and talking to students about that.
That's hilarious.
And, I did that for a period of time.
Right.
And then I was like, I'm not making the money that I want to make. My hours are crazy. I could no longer coach soccer. And then I got another job in sales, right? And I became a small business consultant, and I started working with small business owners.
Right.
And that period of when I wanted to win the conference trip, I wanted to go to Hawaii with everybody, I was pursuing those things, but I felt empty all the time. And I was just miserable. And I was like, I hate what I'm doing. I didn't hate the people.
Right.
It was the process that was really getting to me, this turn and burn and chasing the same thing over and over and over. And that discipline that we have.
You think that was a lot of the I'm sorry to interrupt you. You think, your empathy, and you connect with people on such a personal level, on a human level, that, you were kind of like your career now. I know a little bit about you, and you'll continue to explain, but what you do now is so pivotal, especially for helping athletes, because you connect and you understand, so you can empathize with them, but then you know what they've gone through because you know how their mind works. And then you kind of lead them down this business journey. But do you think that you were so maybe jumping around from all these different jobs, all these different businesses, because you were talented enough to execute the position and job and make your money and do your things, but there was really when you said turn and burn, there's no really human connection there. So even though the money's there was not that fulfillment of making a human connection. So, you might have felt some, a little bit of loss there that might have contributed to some of your mental health challenges, perhaps. I don't know. What do you think?
I think you're right. There were two pieces to the puzzle in each of those jobs. It was what I was experiencing was an idea or a concept and a carrot being dangled.
Right.
And then when I saw the reality of what it took to get that carrot sometimes, and I would witness people harming others, stealing from others. One of the jobs that I worked in, someone was stealing all the deals. And he was supported. And then we realized he was stealing from multiple people, and he was still supported. And I'm like, but wait, if we did that in our sport, we would get cut. We would lose our scholarships. You can't cut corners. And so that feeling for me of abusing your status to gain something and stepping on top of people, sometimes with sports, we do see people that cheat. We do see people that have issues. I'm not saying that we don't as athletes, but my growing up and my experience of loyalty and how important my soccer teammates were to me, any form of betrayal was what felt like a personal attack. So we didn't deal with that. And like we eliminated people who did that on the soccer field. Right. And in corporate America, those people, they were promoted. And I was
you cut out again. I'm sorry, if you will repeat that last sentence.
I said in some of the corporate positions I was in, those behaviors were supported, endorsed, and those people were promoted. Where in our sports, you're not going to deal with that, especially with female athletes. Our bonding and some of the things that we have, if someone betrays someone, you're betraying the entire team. And when I witnessed that in various ways, I struggled with that. That was a big dilemma for me. And so it's like, okay, I'm selling a widget or I'm selling a service, and yet the person who's getting promoted is lying, and the person who's getting promoted is stealing, or the person who's getting promoted is abusive. And so I was like, I can't do this anymore. And that business owner. And the other caveat to that was my nephew. Because when I came home to visit California from Denver, I was living in Denver. I came home to visit my nephew, and we had a long conversation, and he said he wanted to become a chef, and he was kind of flop housing with a bunch of dudes and hadn't quite figured out what he was doing at 19. And I was like, hey, what do you want to do? Right.
Not many 19-year-olds do.
Right. And yeah, I was the weird anomaly, you know, I'm going to be a child psychologist.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
And he was just like, you know, Aunt Kim, you've pursued everything you've ever wanted to do and you're miserable.
Right.
And I really don't know if I want to follow you.
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I share this story with the reason why I quit corporate America, because I truly was miserable. I hated going to work. I was stressed out every single day. I had a really abusive boss that I didn't get along with.
Yeah.
And I didn't want him to follow that same path. Like, you can take a different path. You don't have to go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a degree, be married with 2.2 children and a picket fence. You don't have to do that. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And he goes, so why aren't you doing it?
Right.
And it was like, holy shit, you know, and you just were like, okay, kid, thank you for putting a mirror in my face.
Out of the mouth of babes, as they say. And I want to just interject something real quick. And
2 weeks later.
I want to interject something real quick with you. And again, I understand exactly where you're coming from, but you know, and I just want to interject the human element of it, because corporate America as it in and of itself isn't bad, because there's the human element there. I mean, a company is only as good as the people that are in it and that are operating in it. So just, you know, and I know that you're not, because I know your heart, and I know we've talked and we've talked off a screen and everything. So you're not bashing corporate America. What you're talking about is the human element of culture, and maybe some training lapses and some different ways of looking at things. So corporate America, we're definitely not saying that there's not a place, because we all have a place, and it all comes down to the human element. And I think now, especially with the focus becoming on mental health, and in our industry, the athlete mental health side, I think that corporate America's, they're not stupid. They're succeeding for a reason. And so I think there's going to be a big shift, and hopefully we can play a part in that, and you can play a part in that, because we know the other side. And so we'll come in there and we'll help and we'll train, because everything's training, and then everything's execution, and everything's follow-up, and then measuring, and then readapting. It's kind of like, you know, how many times do we go in, and some of you have these stories, you'll be getting your butt kicked, and then you go in at halftime and you have a great game plan. The coach assesses the situation, you pull together, the team kind of comes together and says, all right, enough of this. I'm tired of losing. Danny, quit getting burned every other play. Quit getting sucked up on play action passes. I always wanted to be a hitter, and you know, they would always like, hey, I'm number 7 is an idiot. Let's get but you know what I'm saying? So at corporate America, the business, everybody's changing now. I think that the training in the future looks bright for all of the ecosystem in terms of athletes and corporate America and working. Hopefully, I mean, I'm just a hopeful person, but yeah, you tell you're living this life, you're trying to give advice to your nephew, and he's looking back at you and saying, you know, look in the mirror. And it's one of those things that we've all been checked like that, you know, and I think deep down we kind of all check ourselves, but we usually drown that voice out. And that's why community and mental health is so important, to be around the right people that can understand you, hence the athlete mental health platform, because I wanted to be around people like you, because you know where my head is. You know, you've seen businesses like mine start up, you've seen businesses like ours finish, you've seen them go on to great heights, you've seen them fizzle out, but you also know the athletic mindset. So you can take someone, you've given me some great advice. And although I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years and had some success and had some failures and had some, you know, on the financial road and all across the board, you know, you've been able to give me some really great tips and some great pushes and some great, you know, picked up some nuances that I wasn't really looking at. And so I know you found your niche. Now it's all about settling in and, you know, getting out there. So
yeah, it's weird, because when I left corporate America, it was because I wanted to walk my talk to my nephew. It's not about the money and chasing the recognition or the team. It was, I wanted to be happy. I wanted a lifestyle. And so my lifestyle was, I built a company, a cleaning company from scratch. I thought I wanted to own a coffee shop. And then I got told no by my financial. Important thing too, with athletes, we surround ourselves by people who are smarter, bigger, faster, and better than us. Or we should, and we should be coachable. people,
Yeah.
and we're willing to be around mentors. And I
Yeah.
think that that's an important piece of our mental health, is to surround yourself with people who can help you. And when my financial advisor was like, no, I don't want you to build a coffee shop. You want to move back home to California. If you do this, you're going to be stuck in Denver in a brick and mortar, and you're not going to be happy. And I went, oh crap. My nephew, and I had to change my gears, right? So I built a cleaning company from scratch, and I built it up and hired employees, and I created my own team of people. And that was what I said this the other day on a different podcast. I said what I personally was chasing, and each of us are different in our pursuits as athletes once we leave our sport. I was pursuing the feeling of team. That to me was a really powerful part of my life.
It is.
I played a team sport. I loved winning as a team. I felt I had an individual role. Like you said, we have a role on the team. You were a DB, you know, I played both a
slow DB, by the way.
A slow DB. I actually ran with the running backs. I had a 4.6 40. So I was.
Damn it, you were faster than me too. Everybody on this podcast is faster than me.
The fastest player on the field. I was not the fastest player on the field. I had 3 other players who were faster than I was. I mean, they ran 4.2 40s. We ran with the running backs for the football team.
Wow.
Yeah, we were fast. We were tiny and we were fast.
I was tiny and slow, the perfect storm.
So, you know, we each have our role, right?
Yeah.
Like you couldn't put me in the middle of the field. I would get completely lost. I didn't know how to play those positions, but I knew how to play defense, and I was super aggressive, and I knew how to score, and I loved winning. And so I was a forward as well. And as I got higher in my levels, my skill was matched by everybody else, and people started beating me. So even though I was recruited as a forward, and I think this is important too for athletes, our roles change. Our jobs change. Our coaches put us in different positions to fit into the team, because the team comes first.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah, it really does. The team has to come first. Yeah.
The team has to come first when you play a team sport. And even in an individual sport, there are people surrounding that player or individual. Say in tennis, there's personal trainers, there's nutritionists, there's coaches.
Golf.
Individual athlete.
Right.
And so golf. Yeah. So for me, this is what I recognized I loved the most about building my business. I loved training new employees in my own company. I got to hire the people that I loved and wanted to work with. And then I wanted to support them in their pursuits and their career paths. And so I created Team LBC. So Little Bit Cleaning was my nickname was Little Bit because I was tiny.
Nice acronym.
That's how the company name came. And it was every little bit counts was our tagline.
I like it.
I was known as Little Mighty Mouse.
Oh, that's funny.
So then when I hired my first 2 employees, it became Team LBC. You know, me became we. And I really wanted that. And,
the key to
and that
success.
was really important. Company 2 days before COVID hit last year. Literally March 15th, signed on the dotted line to sell my business to one of my best friends who I worked with at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Full circle relationships.
Yeah.
Again, the relationships with athletes too. We remember one another when we were little. We're friends when we're teenagers, and we're friends when we're adults. And that's the same thing when I sold my business. I've known the man for 18 years. He and I used to work together at Enterprise. I adore him. I know his kids. I know his family. He's the right person to purchase my company. And 2 days later, and a week later, it shut everything down in Denver. COVID. I couldn't have had a better handoff. Passing the baton to a leader that I trusted, who could be on site and manage my team of employees and give that business to him. He purchased it, obviously, but giving the reins to him and saying, it's your turn. I'm no longer in the lead, and being okay with that. These are all athletic things to go, I know I need to retire from that one. I can't compete anymore in that arena. It's time to step away. And that's how I started my own business consulting business that I'm doing now, which is how you and I started talking. I very similar to sport. You know, you might have started playing football as Pop Warner, right? And then you played in high school, and then you played in college, and we have these different levels. And that's how I've done my work as well. I have an insatiable curiosity.
I can
I
see that.
love people. And
Yeah.
I'm super introverted, which people don't really realize. Like
Hmm.
I give everything and then I have to like recoup for like days.
Yeah.
I just like, I'm
Yeah.
a people person,
Right.
but in a large room, I'm the fly on the wall.
Yeah.
I'm not the person who's, again, this is the role that I was in soccer field too. I was not the captain. I was not the leader on the field. I just did my job. And
Right.
that's kind of how I am now. Like, I like being behind the scenes. I love seeing other people succeed. Like
Right.
that thrills me.
Yeah.
So it's a soccer player. And then I became a soccer coach. I was a therapist and I go to therapy because hallelujah for my therapist to get me through. And then,
Yeah.
I owned my own business and now I help people build their businesses. And so one of the things with business coaching, some of the business coaches that I know have never built a different business, have done that entrepreneurial side aside from building their own coaching.
Right.
And I think it's powerful to be able to go, I know what it feels like to start a startup from scratch. I know what it feels like to have employees try to steal from you. I know what it feels like to sell your business, I know those pitfalls. I know who are former athletes who want to do the entrepreneur path. Even if they want to go into corporate, it doesn't bother me.
Right.
It's like, I want them to be able to be seen by HR professionals.
Right.
Athletes are performers.
Right.
They don't necessarily want to talk about it. They want to do it. And
Right.
in this arena where we're trying to like get seen online through resumes and pumping things through social media, people want to be seen and they want to perform. They want the opportunity to perform. And so I think that those things are really powerful and that athletes can in their sport in the business world. And I love the game of business. I think it's awesome. And we all deserve to make money and do our own thing.
Right.
So,
and you're good at it. And I'll tell you, I was reading something that you said this morning, where you said, I have zero tolerance for people that are ripping athletes apart, that don't understand the mindset. And so here's the thing, I'm going to flip the script on that. Okay. Now, there's people in the corporate world and there's people that are hiring that, I'm not saying they don't have zero tolerance, but we have to give them a little bit of leeway, because when athletes come over, and I'm an athlete and I've always been an athlete, but I'm also a business owner and I also hire athletes and I also do, hire others. But, when an athlete comes over, they have to take the time to learn the ropes. And I think this name, image, and likeness situation, I think there's going to be some curriculum developed around that somewhere along the way. Someone's going to step up to the plate and realize that, hey, these young kids that are in college now, student athletes, even at the high school level, at the junior high level for that matter. I mean, there's some 8th graders out there that are really talented, 9th graders, so there's going to have to be a mindset shift. And so I think that there's going to be a lot more room for people like yourself that are athletes that are able to reach out to these students and say, okay, let me show you a path. Let me teach you how to, just like I would teach you how to play your position on the field. Let me teach you how to play your position in the business realm, because the fear of failure, a lot of times, why do we fear that? I know me, when I fear failure the most, one is I don't want to let anybody else down. Two, I may not know as much of the information. So, you know what I mean? That's how I kind of deal with that. If I try to skirt and take the easy way out, deep down, I know that you're going to get exposed. It's kind of like in golf. I used to play, at a very high level, and I would always avoid the sand trap. You know what I mean? And my buddies would know. I mean, I'd be a scratch golfer, play great, but if I get in a sand trap, I was about a 15 or 20 handicap. I was terrible. And I remember one of my friends, we went on this golf trip and I was just kicking butt, man. I was playing really good. I was 4 under par going into the turn. I was playing great and, had a big lead on him. And then I hit it in the sand trap and we were walking up the fairway and he kind of looked over at me and he kind of winked at me and goes, "The jig is up." And I was like, oh. Sure enough, it took me about 4 or 5 shots to get out of there and it blew the whole round. He ended up winning. But what I'm saying is, there are things in life that will expose you and catch up. So you got to learn it. And so these athletes, for mental health, okay, when they're going into the business world or going into the work world from a transition standpoint, They've got to have the knowledge. And I think that if that's one of the reasons why I like to partner with yourself and companies like yours that have transition, services for athletes to help them mentally, because if you don't have the training, you're going to fail. And then when you start failing and you're not used to losing as an athlete, you start to recluse, you start to have anxiety, you start to suffer depression, you start to question yourself. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad to be connected with you. I want to ask you the toughest mental health challenge that you've ever faced as an athlete. Was it performance anxiety? What was it? I mean, the toughest mental health challenge that you faced, so others out there like you can understand what you faced. And then secondly, go on to say, how did you defeat that, or how do you keep that at bay?
I struggled with confidence.
Okay.
So I competed against the best players to win Olympic, gold medals and World Cups. So I was the age group where all the Brandy Chastain was a teammate of mine.
Okay.
So she's a little older than I am, but like Joy Fawcett, Julie Foudy, Leslie Gallimore, all these people were winning the biggest, they're on the national team.
Yeah.
So I always knew that I was good, but they were the best. So I've never been. So for me, instead of worrying about being the best or having championship rings, those things didn't matter to me because I knew I could never be them. So what I struggled with the most was leaving my sport and realizing I could never attain that level of athleticism ever again.
Right.
And facing that was a major crash. That transition of leaving my sport of like, it's actually done.
Right. I remember that day. It was terrible. Ugh.
Like that finalization of I can no longer compete as a soccer player anymore was like big. So the depression that comes with that. So the confidence piece was one where I was a very shy kid, and I talk more now, obviously, but I was a very shy kid.
Yeah.
I wasn't a leader on the field. I just did my job,
Right.
And so that confidence I had to learn. I had to gain courage. Have the courage to try.
Right.
So athletes forget it took them years to become an expert and to be as good as they were. They forget what it was like to start crawling when they first started kicking a ball, right?
Yeah.
And so when natural. You go into a new endeavor, whether it's going into a job in corporate America and you no longer have all the coaches around you, you have to have the courage to make mistakes and to be willing to go through the process and have the discipline to learn. So that kept you to pursuing your sport, that internal driver can drive you in your business. It can drive you in corporate America. So mine was team. So I constantly was like, okay, how can I build a team of people around me? That's what I need the most.
Right.
And when I hit my depression, when those places come in, I get my team around me even harder.
Community is so important.
Harder. I reach out to coaches. I hire business coaches. Smart. I've had 7 business coaches in 13 years.
Okay, but you've been in a lot of business. So yeah. I applaud that. I think that self-evaluation and being self-aware. Again, I'm sorry for over talking you, but self-evaluation and being self-aware of knowing what you don't know. I read something one time that said, the smartest people in the world aren't the ones that have the most knowledge. They're the ones that have the knowledge of what they don't know. And so, it's okay to not know. And I think sometimes of human beings, and, you see this a lot in, spiritual discussions and different high level, conversations, philosophy conversations. And, one of the things that I was telling my daughter the other day, and my son, I even I talk to my kids and I say, it's okay to say, I don't know. When someone says something and says, well, what do you think about this? Or why is this? Or why is that? And, just say, I don't know. It's okay. It's kind of like on the, spiritual sense. Someone says, well, if you have a loving God, then why does he let this happen? There's a lot of times people will try to explain that away. And why not just say, I have no idea. I don't know. It's okay to not know, but the human ego sometimes says, I got to know something, or I got to pretend like I know something. And I think when it comes to athletes and getting mental help, we're afraid to say, I need help, because we're supposed to have the answers. You know, when, of course, I'd always get burned because I was slow. I know why I got burned, but the coaches would pull, the coaches would pull us in there and say, what happened? Where were you at? What did you do? And I'd be like, instead of saying, well, coach, you know, I was over here paying attention instead of being over on my position. And so I knew, but I was afraid to say, you know what I mean? In life, that's what we got to be able to do. We got to say, hey, listen, I need help. I don't know. I don't know. You know, I have a general sense, but I don't know. I need help.
Yeah. And I think athletes are, and this was part of like a conversation that I had about this whole thing about, you know, Naomi Osaka and the fact that she said, look, I have to step back. I can't not do this. Right. And being able to say, makes me teary-eyed. I need help.
There's that imp,
deal,
there's
right?
that imp coming.
Ooh, you're like, oh shit, you're exposing yourself,
Yeah,
right? You're
right.
People who are high performers, when we fail, when we make a mistake on a big stage,
right,
or we, you know, make a bad pass and we own goal something, or we screw up in the sand trap, or whatever your thing
hey,
is, right?
Wait a minute, I still have PTSD. Be careful with that sand.
I know, right? I really don't know how to do that, and I don't know how to get better.
Right.
That's like, hey, here's the white flag. You know, and I think that athletes are taught to suck it up.
Yeah,
we're taught to compartmentalize. We're taught to say you have to put everything aside to focus on what you're doing. And that may work for a minute, but then behind the scenes, you need to be able to let go. You need to be able to cry. You need to be able to feel. You need to be able to recognize what that feeling actually is and work through that. And I think that we don't, and we're doing better now. We talk about mental health more. I mean, I obviously was in mental health since I was 21 years old. So, you know, it's been in my life for 20 years. I'm not licensed as a therapist any longer, but you know, I certainly tap into my therapeutic background when I'm connecting with my clients, because if they have a horrible day and someone just passed away, we might not just talk about their business for a second. Let's be human. And that's the thing, is like, always be human. Athletes are human beings. They're not athletes first. They're human beings first.
And I appreciate you playing that position. Again, that's one of the main goals of the athlete mental health certification program is, you know, we're not counselors, but what we're doing is we're putting together a team of people that are and sports psychologists, mental professionals, coaches, and people like yourself that are at a high level at whatever unique need they have that's going to address that mental. If they need some clinical assistance, we're definitely going to refer that. But there's nothing wrong with understanding the telltale signs and understanding how to relate. Okay, so recognize, you know, the RACE acronym, recognize, you know, acknowledge, connect, and then empathize with them and their family. Okay, so we're going to be the athlete mental health certification. We're going to recognize when we see an athlete or even ourselves, when we realize that, hey, you know, we're in a position that we need some help. We pose you know, a situation to ourselves or someone else. Okay, then we need to acknowledge that it's okay. All right, we're not alone. We acknowledge the fact that we have an issue that we're battling right now. Acknowledge it with someone that and then make that connection. You know, there are a lot of wonderful professionals out there, a lot of sports psychologists, and there's always a silver lining in, you know, a bright spot in any dark room. And so I think that all of these wonderful sports psychologists and mental health and behavioral health specialists around this world that have been kind of silenced or really hadn't been able to show what they can do or offer the support that they've trained for because people are afraid to come out of the woodwork. Now they're going to have a chance to really excel. Okay. So that's the connection that we make. And then empathize. Empathy is such a huge deal. You know, if we can just stop for a moment, the Bridgeway in Little Rock, Arkansas, it's a Universal Health Services hospital. They have a wonderful video on YouTube. You could look it up. It's the Bridgeway in Little Rock. It's about empathy. I think it won some awards. It's such an amazing video. You got to watch that, people, if you're listening. It's on empathy, the Bridgeway in Little Rock. YouTube it. It's amazing, but it allows you to see that, you know, just because you're looking at someone, especially athletes, as we talk, we put on brave faces because, you know, it's kind of like stare downs in a fight. I mean, I'm a former fighter back in the day. And, you know, when you'd stare at you could literally see where they're at. You know, you're trying to break them. You're trying to look deep into their soul. And so athletes are trained to have that eye of the tiger, so to speak. And so what we've got to do is understand that we can break that down. It's okay. Have empathy with those guys, have empathy with those girls. Let's let it down, let our guard down for a second, you know? And so that's an exciting program. And I really appreciate the fact that you've gone from an athlete, and you're still an athlete. Once an athlete, always an athlete. I think
Always.
your friend Corey Camp, you know, the great athlete mindset podcast guy, he's pretty sharp there. Forever athlete, I think is what he calls it. Is that right?
I'm a contributor to his book.
Yeah.
I wrote a chapter in Forever Athlete that's coming out.
I think that's
thrilled to know
wonderful.
him. He's fantastic.
Yeah. You two make a good team. I follow you guys a lot. There's, you know, like I said, there's a few people that I follow, and you guys are one of them. I follow sometimes for not just the professional side of it. I follow you for humor, because if someone you're so shy.
I'm pretty blunt, and I don't just focus solely on business. I kind of do.
I know. If someone steps outside the lines,
we're human beings. I'm not just a business person, you know?
Yeah. I get my popcorn out and go, that's Kimberly's going to tear this person or this.
I'm going to tear that person apart in a minute.
Okay. So in wrapping up, okay. So 2 more things. What's your daily mental workout look like? I mean, is it reading? Is it motivation? Is it videos? Is it meditation? What's your daily mental fitness workout? What is it?
I break my day in half.
Okay.
So I work really hard in the morning because that's when I'm most creative.
Yeah.
So I get my emails done. I do all that kind of stuff. I'm implementing getting back out and working out a lot better than I was. COVID has been insane, and, you know, and dealing with depression, et cetera, makes it difficult. So I'm actively working out again, but I break my day in half, and I take a nap mid-afternoon beforehand, and I set my alarm so that I break my day up, because I coach soccer still. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm coaching until like 7:30 at night. Cool. And I eat dinner later. So my days get kind of weird. Yeah. And so I try to make sure that I take a nap, and I plug in a guided meditation, that I turn off the screens. Nothing is on. And I turn my phone off. I mean, getting away from the day-to-day screen thing is really important to me. Right. And that's probably the one thing that I do most consistent. So I went on a 5-mile walk down by the beach last night. Wonderful. And, you know, I'm working out more, and the ocean is what calms me. Yeah. Sunsets are my favorite. Yeah. So watching the sunset, taking pictures when I'm on my walk. I never listen to music or podcasts. Digital detox. I want to see people, and I want to see people's faces. I want to see the dogs and say hello. I want to smell the ocean. I want to see the flowers. Yeah. It's truly like I turn the world off. I don't let anybody interrupt me when I'm working out. So I want your mental fitness workout routine. That sounds great. Jeez, at least you got that beautiful ocean to look at. Okay, last one. Guilty pleasure. What is a guilty pleasure? What do you do if your teammates found out about it in the locker room, but look at you and go, Kimberly, I can't believe that. He knows that though. I'm a total nerd. I'm an absolute nerd. I nerd out on documentaries. I literally nerded out and watched a whole bunch of Animal Planet documentaries this weekend, and just fascinated by the world and the earth. It's just that curiosity. I used to read encyclopedias as a kid. That's funny. I'm a nerd, and they wouldn't be surprised. They're like, oh, Kim's watching a documentary, you know, like, okay, she's not gonna go watch some random comedy show or watch The Bachelorette or something stupid. I'm like, that's funny. Animal Planet and what else? And how things are made, you know, things like that. I'm just curious. I can't do half the stuff that I watch, but I like it. Yeah. That's so funny. Kimberly, thank you. Okay, so tell everybody how they can get in touch with you. I mean, I've got it all pulled up, and we'll put it in the box below so you can get in touch with her. But tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, Kimberly. My website is kimbradybusinesscoaching.com, and you can email me at kimbradybusinesscoaching.com. Okay. And you can find me on LinkedIn as Kim Brady. pretty much the easiest way to reach out to me is probably through there, since that's how you and I met. It's probably the easiest.
Or just
Yeah.
follow me, Danny White, on LinkedIn, and just watch my activity feed, because every probably twice a day you're going to see me commenting something on Kimberly's like, oh, what is she doing now? Okay, all right, where are we at? Kimberly, I appreciate
being
you.
a brat.
It's so nice to finally virtually meet you. And again, I'm a fan.
Well.
I'm a fan, and I look for big things with you. And if there's anything I can help you with, let me know. But athlete mental health, that's the goal right now. We're going to bring together on this mastermind a collection of great minds in the athlete world, the mental health world, the sports psychology world, the business ecosystem. If you cater to athletes, we want you on our team. And so, Kimberly, please keep us in mind if you see someone out there that we should have on the mastermind, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Danny. So
have
nice
a
to
great
meet you
day. Have a great
Cheers.
day.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, I love her. She's doing such a good job.